Raditz. Even though he was the brother of Goku and the first real antagonist in Dragon Ball Z, he is mostly known for being a perfect subject to pretty much clown on and just a weakling in general. And for sure, nobody can deny that in the continuity of Dragon Ball, he is not exactly the strongest guy we have ever seen. But that got me thinking, did Raditz really just get unlucky by being born in the Dragon Ball universe? Let's say, what if Raditz landed in another anime verse? Would he be able to avoid his fate of being penetrated by a green slug man, or would fate find a way to catch up to him by a different means? In today's video, I will just be having some fun and speculating what would happen if Raditz were to land in various other shonen anime series. This video is really not meant to be super serious, rather it's just meant to have some fun time with my lovely viewers, which is you by the way. For the sake of this video, I have grabbed a couple of well-known shonen anime to use for this little thought experiment of sorts. As you can see on your screen, there are 9 different anime shown. Going from left to right, we have Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Naruto, Bleach, Fairy Tail, Hunter x Hunter, My Hero Academia, Fate, and One Piece. These are just some randomly selected series which are not ranked in any specific order. If you have other interesting use cases for this scenario, be sure to comment them down below to discuss them. And while you are doing that, you might as well subscribe, wink wink. But before we get into the aforementioned anime verses, I feel it's necessary to address the pretty big elephant in the room. The results of this experiment will vary greatly depending on where in the timeline of events Raditz would drop. If Raditz drops near the end of some of these series, his chances will drastically decrease for pretty obvious reasons. For the sake of making this video as fair as possible for Raditz, I am going to assume he will arrive at the first episode of each series, just like he did in Dragon Ball Z. Another important thing that has to be noted is that I won't make him just fight the main characters. I will have him try to conquer the planets according to the Saiyan lore from Dragon Ball. Raditz will have to sweep the entire population in order to claim victory. Now, with all that being said, let's hop into our first series, Demon Slayer. Imagine Tanjiro just walking down a mountain to the nearest town to gather supplies just like he does in episode 1. Except the town is struck by an object falling from the sky. After the crash, which has already destroyed the town, pretty much everyone is already dead, Tanjiro arrives to see a tall muscular man emerging from the crater. Raditz has arrived. Now the only ones nearby in the initial crash would be Tanjiro, Muzan, and Giyu. Obviously Tanjiro would get washed in 0.01 seconds. He has no powers whatsoever at this point, but Giyu and Muzan do. Now personally, I think Muzan would not engage with Raditz right away. He really does seem more like the type of guy to lay low and observe for a while. Giyu would undoubtedly assume Raditz is a demon of sorts and try to at least save the remaining villagers who might have survived the initial impact. Now, if you want my honest opinion, I don't think a single one of the Hashiras or Demon Slayers would be able to defeat Raditz. As he would just go from area to area, he would just be pretty much one-shotting every single one of them with little to no effort. Raditz can fly and literally fire off energy waves with the power to obliterate mountains at the very least. The human faction from Demon Slayer is at the very highest level of power, I'd say around the tier where they could destroy small cities like over time, I think. But that is simply nowhere near enough to really harm Raditz in any meaningful way. The demon faction would stand a better shot with their special tricks, but I still feel like they would not really stand much more of a chance than the humans did in the end. They would stand a better chance if they worked together, but their infighting would never allow that. Like, I don't see the humans and demons joining forces to fight Raditz. And if the full moon does happen to come around, Raditz would be unstoppable for the entire night. Even if some manage to evade his onslaught as a great ape, their forces would really just be decimated to a point where they would no longer be able to put up any resistance even once Raditz reverts back to his human form. So my conclusion is that Raditz would be able to completely conquer the world of Demon Slayer. Next up we have Jujutsu Kaisen. Imagine Yuji just chilling out, maxing, acting all cool in the occult club room when out of nowhere an alien spaceship crash lands on the track field just outside. The descent of Raditz has begun. Now the JJK verse is a pretty odd one because from the very start of the series you already have strong guys like Gojo, Toji, Panda, Megumi, Maki, Nanami, Choso, Geto, Jogo, Mahito, Moraga, Yuta, and I mean to some degree Sukuna as as well. Whilst I 100% believe Yuji would not survive the arrival of Raditz, some of these sorcerers stand a real chance against Raditz, especially if they all just join forces. Raditz might be able to take out, say, I don't know, half of them before he faces a real possibility of being overpowered or caught by surprise. In my opinion, I don't think Raditz could just conquer the entire JJK-verse. There is the full moon argument, but he might be weeks away from that even happening, so I don't want to use this as a powerful argument because it's pretty unreliable. So in this case, I'm going to have to give JJK the win for this one. Chaditz is strong, but he's not unbeatable by non-Dragon Ball verses. That's pretty much the gist of this video. So next up is Naruto. Now, my pretty big distaste for Naruto aside, it's just the ninja stuff doesn't do it for me. But for this scenario, we just have to imagine a young Naruto frolicking about in the Hidden Leaf village when all of a sudden, oh, what's this? It's Raditz. I think that the Naruto-verse 100% stands a chance against Raditz if they all just joined hands together. Individually, I think the majority of shinobi, especially early on in the series, would not really stand a chance, but you could definitely convince me that a group of skilled shinobi would be able to handle Raditz. Even though I don't particularly like Naruto, I won't let my personal opinion distract me from the fact that there are plenty of strong shinobi in the show who could handle a guy like Raditz. Especially if they recreated the skill of the armies during the shinobi wars just to go after Raditz. Would it be easy? No. But would it be possible? Totally. So next up we have Bleach. Ichigo is just relaxing at home after having his dad kick the shit out of him under the facade of father-son bonding. He looks out the window and lo and behold, Raditz is storming towards the planet at record speeds. Unfortunately for Raditz, the fact that guys like Squad Zero and the Espada are technically around from episode 1 means that Raditz has a high likelihood of getting his ass beat. Both of these groups have reasons to keep the Earth as safe as they possibly can because they want to use it for their own purposes. One wants to pretty much own it and the other wants to protect it. So I doubt they would just let Raditz buttfuck every single soul on the planet without intervening. Honest opinion here, I think Raditz would lose within the hour if they send their elite forces to deal with the threat. No joke, Bleach is kind of beating Raditz's ass before he can even just get his pace going. So for this next setting, imagine Natsu and Lucy just meeting in Hagion and confronting Bora for being a con artist. But then, instead of Bora getting his ass kicked, a star descends from the heavens and makes contact with the unsuspecting city. Raditz makes his grand entrance. Obviously, that entire town, including Natsu and Lucy, are just pretty much done for. Even if Natsu does his miraculous Nakama power awakening at this point in time, Raditz would still be able to just easily overpower him. But just like with Naruto, I highly doubt Raditz could just conquer this world like it's nothing. Guys like Zeref, Ethnologia, the Bottom Alliance, the Wizard Saints, the collective guilds all over Magnolia, and the forces of the kingdoms would all not take very kindly to a glorified space invader indiscriminately just laying waste to their world. You could of course make the argument that Zeref would stay out of it and just only really engage Raditz if they crossed paths, but all of the other forces combined would definitely be able to overpower Raditz. Honestly speaking, even Ethnologia alone might be enough to pretty much weaken Raditz enough for the rest to overpower him. I often see people really underestimate Fairy Tail's power scaling, but I just think that is completely ungrounded. Fairy Tail has a ton of strong characters who would at least be able to manage to fend off a guy like Raditz. Obviously, there would most likely be a ton of casualties, but the chances of winning the fight are nowhere near zero. My personal opinion is that Raditz would fail his invasion of the planet if he were to land in Fairy Tail. But what do you guys think? Be sure to comment your thoughts down below. Next up, we have Hunter x Hunter. Imagine Gon just walking around his little island when all of a sudden a meteor impact occurs. Amidst the widespread panic, a figure emerges from the debris. Raditz has descended to conquer. Now, just like with pretty much any other scenario, the actual main character of the show would have zero chances to survive whatsoever. The weight of fending off the invader falls upon the shoulders of the remaining Nen users, with guys like the Phantom Troop, the Zoldyck family, Netero, and several other skilled hunters. I think the fight between Raditz and the native populace would be a pretty fierce fight. I do however believe Raditz would be able to come out on top even whilst facing all of them at once. He would definitely not be able to just wipe them all out with ease though, like he would struggle, but Netero with that chest bomb would also do some pretty crazy damage. But unknown to Raditz, the humans are just his first hurdle for domination on the planet. The second second threat would be the ever-evolving Chimera Ants. Once Meruem and his royal guard ascend, Raditz will have to face another series of strong opponents. The ever-evolving nature of the Chimera Ants does open the possibility for being stronger than Meruem to eventually be born. With this one, I'm kind of torn, to be honest. Like, I think both the scenario of Raditz winning and the scenario of Raditz losing are definite possibilities. So I am going to put this scenario as a tie of sorts. Like, both results are equally possible in my opinion. Next up, we have the Minecraft YouTuber community. Wow, sorry about that, guys. I have no idea what just happened there. I meant to say the My Hero Academia universe. So imagine Deku walking to school on Epstein's Island. God damn it, there I go again. Imagine Deku walking to school on a normal day, but out of the blue, a loud impact just deafens his ears. He looks towards the center of town only to see a massive crater. Raditz has arrived. Now, the My Hero Academia verse is a pretty funny one, because pretty much 99% of the entire population has a power of sorts. But you also have to remember that a good 95% of those powers are either pretty useless or the user of said power has zero training with it in terms of combat. Pretty much the only ones who would be able to at least stand up to Raditz are the heroes and villains themselves. But to be honest, I just don't see any of these chumps just being strong enough to beat Raditz. Pretty much the strongest fighter they have would struggle to destroy small cities in a singular attack, something Raditz should be able to do with almost no effort. You can throw All Might, Endeavor, hell, Deku's mom and every other character in the franchise against Raditz, but he would just easily overpower them if you ask me at least. I'm sure there will be an MHA fan just mentioning this one specific super obscure quirk which could beat Raditz, but I just don't see that happening. So I am going to give the win here to Raditz for being responsible for saving the world, I mean conquering it from the My Hero Academia universe. Next up, I chose to include the Fate verse for this video. For the sake of this video, let's just take the world from the original Fate trilogy like Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works and Heaven's Feel. So imagine Shiro just sharing his incredible wisdom about people dying if they are killed, whilst all of a sudden Raditz just lands on his head. Let me state that not a single living mage from the Fateverse would be able to scratch Raditz. Most of the servants would also have some pretty big boy trouble to even come close to Raditz. But lore-wise, characters like King Arthur with her Excalibur, Arquaid, Gilgamesh, King Hassan and other strong servants would definitely be able to beat Raditz. The biggest obstacle Raditz would face in this entire scenario is the fact that Alaya, otherwise known as the Counterforce, would specifically select the biggest counter to Raditz in order to preserve the Earth. A short explanation, Alaya is a collective entity derived from the unconsciousness of all mankind, which always strives and enforces the survival of mankind to the best of its abilities. It can do so by forcefully summoning entities from the past or future who would be capable of saving the planet from its current predicament. Alaya would definitely sense the arrival of Raditz and properly enforce its powers to call upon someone who would be able to beat him. Whether this person died a long time ago or has yet to be born is irrelevant to the power of the Counterforce. Honestly speaking, Raditz stands no chance against the Fateverse whatsoever. There are literal ancient gods, overpowered servants, and you have the absolutely broken overpowered Ord just lurking in wait. Raditz would be outmatched due to the simple fact that the nature of Alaya would just find his perfect counter. So in this scenario, I am going to agree with the fact that Raditz would fail miserably in his conquest of the Fateverse. And then lastly, we have One Piece. Imagine Luffy just casually sailing when a nearby island is impacted with an object falling from the heavens. Raditz has descended to prepare the planet for a sail. And since this is the beginning of One Piece, most characters would not be able to survive the initial onslaught Raditz would bring onto the planet. The only guys I can think of who might be strong enough at the start of the series are guys like maybe Kaido, Garp, Whitebeard, Big Mom, like guys like this. But let me put it like this. I can see two scenarios occurring here. The first one is where Raditz would pick them off in smaller groups, which would lead to them just being unable to put up enough resistance in the end. The other one is where all of the strongest pirates join forces in an all-out war against the Saiyan. Now, I will freely admit that I am not a big enough One Piece enjoyer to know the likelihood of them all banding together to fight against a common enemy. But in the case that scenario does occur, I do believe that One Piece could be able to survive the attack of Raditz. So in light of what I just said, I will rule this scenario as another tie. So those were 9 different, really short scenarios of how the arrival of Raditz would go in other anime series. Obviously, these were very short descriptions because I did not want this to be a super long video. This was honestly meant more so as a test to see if this specific subject of like flipping the X versus Dragon Ball stuff on Raditz versus other anime, if that would be well received. Like if it's well received, I'm definitely down to do more. So if you guys want to see this scenario in one of these anime or a totally different one in more detail, like in a singular video, be sure to let me know. But let's take a look at the final stats for Raditz. Out of the 9 anime mentioned in today's video, I believe he would be able to conquer 2 of them, tie with another 2 of them, and fail his mission with 5 of them. Honestly, when I went into this, I assumed Raditz would just shit on all 9 of them, but after thinking about it, my opinions drastically changed. So once again, if you would like to see another video like this one with different anime or other franchises in them, be sure to let me know. The same goes for if you would want a more in-depth video on, for example, Raditz vs the Fateverse. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my videos. If you liked today's video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts to help promote the channel. Work hard, study well and eat and sleep plenty, and I will see you all again in the next video. Peace out.